taking the time to tune in with me. I'm even thanking myself in this moment, because in this moment, I'm with myself. I've tuned deeper into my own self. Taking this moment to close my eyes and to rest my attention within, inside, focused on my body, my breath, and the awareness that occurs when I turn my attention into this inner space. So that inner space can be described as inside the body, but really that's only part of it. It's into the deeper parts of the mind. When we're not being directed by the external world, we're not watching something, we're not paying attention to something. For example, if we're watching TV or something like that, or more importantly, something like driving a vehicle, obviously it's important that we pay attention to the world outside of us. And that is often dictating, at least in part, the thoughts that we have. But when we know that it's safe to take our attention away from the external world, we can allow our consciousness to sink inward. That does feel often like the body, bringing one's awareness deeper into the body and noticing subtle sensations. But it can also be something that transcends the body and is purely or mostly mind. So that could be like drifting in a daydream, having inner visualizations, whether just kind of passively or intentionally. And this intentional imagining is something that's utilized in some meditation as well as hypnosis. Because in the focusing of one's attention, there is momentum towards the entire awareness gravitating in that direction. So our attention often will be divided and scattered, but the practice of meditation as well as hypnosis is about focusing the mind. And this is something that I think is incredibly important, and I will continue to reiterate as a fundamental practice and experience. Meditation is not exactly like hypnosis, but there's a lot of overlap. Following up from yesterday's video, this creation of one's own personal ethos in a mindful way, meaning we are constructing it instead of it being dictated to us. It's essential that we have some technique where we're able to examine the deeper parts of our awareness, of our consciousness. So thoughts come from a deeper place. Almost, this is the way it was described to me when I learned transcendental meditation, is that our mind is like the ocean, and we become aware of thoughts when they are like the waves on the top of the ocean. but actually thoughts emerge like bubbles out of the mud at the very bottom of the ocean. And there they are small and compressed and subtle. And as they make their way to the surface, they come into the light and they expand, and eventually they burst on the surface. And that's where the conscious mind is aware of them. But they started much deeper in the mind. And again, for example, in transcendental meditation, the point is to follow a pure thought back to its source. And in TM, the transcendental meditation, they describe that pure source as the unified field. This is kind of a term from physics that is in theoretical physics, but its application, especially in bridging the field of spirituality and physics, so a metaphysics, is very, very useful. So when we are taking responsibility for our own life, we are going to bring in a habit, a practice into our life of self-reflection. That can be something like journaling. That can be therapy. That can be numerous things where we're taking time to ask ourselves questions about ourselves and be willing to revise those fundamental concepts where these traits arise from. So we get in this habit of thinking that we are our thoughts. We are these traits, that's our identity. But when one practices going deeper into the psyche, they realize that these are just like skins of an onion, and that we do shed these layers. We take on attributes for a while, and then we outgrow them. So it's very difficult to find this absolute unchanging identity. It is very, very deep. It's okay that we have these shells of identity, but we should be able to analyze them and look at them and decide if they're useful for us as a tool, as a mechanism for functioning in the world. Is it of benefit? Benefit to myself and others. So in honing our personal ethos, we need to be regularly, daily, taking the time to reflect on our own thoughts and our own beliefs. And I believe that the way that those thoughts and beliefs are improved is not necessarily by dissecting them analytically, but actually just reaching for a more expanded state of awareness. Because what happens then is we perceive a larger context. We are open to new information that may invalidate the previous information, or it may contextualize it in a more holistic frame that is actually much more functional. It's more usable in more situations. It also gives us a greater resilience in navigating the world. So we feel more confident in navigating even situations that we haven't experienced before. We have this stronger foundation in our sense, in our inner resourcefulness. And we're growing to know ourselves better, a larger self. And when we do that, we will be embodying quite naturally these larger, more expansive concepts. We can call that wisdom. It's not just a thought, it's a whole network of thoughts and experiences and feelings, personal experiences, as well as learned information, learned knowledge that is contextualized and applicable. We just see a bigger pattern. We see a bigger data set, and therefore can get more accurate analysis of the present situation that we may be in. It is our individual responsibility as adults to be constantly updating and revising our worldview, our self-assessment. This is what is really necessary to be able to contribute to the world. Because as soon as somebody stops that growth process and they stagnate, they now become just an obstacle, not only to other people, but also to themselves. They will become dysfunctional, they'll become miserable, they'll become sick. And in a compassionate society that is trying to work together, is now going to have to support that person. So instead of contributing, they become a drag. And I don't believe anybody wants to be in that position. But the problem is they've never been exposed to the tools, the techniques, the knowledge about how to be empowered, how to be confident, how to know oneself, how to practice conscious evolution. Most people are not taught these things. They're not exposed to these philosophies, these practices. And that's very, very unfortunate. If we want to solve the problems of the world, and likely we're not going to solve all of them overnight, but the way forward is starting with the foundation, and that is our consciousness. That is our greatest power, is our ability to perceive reality and make assessments in the moment, discernments, and narrate our own life with as much ability and confidence, really. Not blind confidence, but true embodied wisdom. And my experience with that is a very pleasurable experience. To feel that inner confidence. I think we all know how appealing it is to have true confidence, not a performative one. Nobody likes that. That's quite off-putting. But true, embodied, quiet confidence. It's very, very appealing. There's a peacefulness that emanates from it. And I believe that this can come from introspection, from meditation, from any practice, really, that allows one to get into that expanded state of awareness that is both relaxing and focused. there's a lot I could say about this, and I will in other videos. I also have another YouTube channel called Heavenly Embodiment, and that's where I put structured educational practices. That's where I'm putting more instructional practices with the details of kind of how to do. Whereas my intention here is more this kind of free flow, spontaneous guidance that is coming from a very authentic, honest place. The opposite of contrived. I want it to be very off the cuff and just and hopefully an example of speaking from this wiser place, because that's my intention each time. That's why I close my eyes and center, so that I can get into this deeper, more expanded state of awareness. And there's huge ranges of that and nuance to it. And obviously right now it's quite subtle. I'm in a very lightly altered state. And you may be able to hear it in my voice because it creates a certain cadence in the voice. But my experience of that is of a broader perspective, seeing beyond just my own little life. And I could say an expanded psychic ability. That's what I believe. And actually it's demonstrated in, there's a book by the founder of Esalen called The Future of the Body, and it goes into great detail about experiments in altered states of consciousness. Also, there's many books. At some point, I will go into those in more detail. Again, probably on the Heavenly Embodiment channel. As far as the science behind altered states of consciousness, another is John Lilly, who is a favorite, who experimented with LSD or mushrooms and sensory deprivation, float tanks. And there's a movie, a fictionalized movie called Altered States. It's quite old now. But the essence of what I am talking about today is the importance of mindfulness and inner listening, having it structured. So doing a practice, learning a practice, and utilizing that practice on a daily basis. Daily is very important, because if we allow ourselves to skip one day, then we'll allow ourselves to skip another day. And a teacher of mine said, you don't boil water by turning it on and turning it off when it warms up. You got to keep the heat on to bring it to a boil, right? So that incremental progress is what provides results. And believe me, over many years of my own meditation practice, I've been on and off and on and off. And the times when I am on and I'm practicing every day, there are cumulative benefits that have stayed with me, And when I come back to it, you know, it's like picking up a favorite sport or something like that. I'm not starting from square one, but there is some backtracking that occurs. I don't punish myself for that. That's totally the opposite of what one should do. It needs to be just a gentle reminder, a noticing of the benefits, right? emphasize that in your mind, the benefits and what it feels like. Remember in your body what happens when you take a few minutes in your day and just sit quietly, closing your eyes. And I suggest using a timer, because when you're in that state, it's easy to lose track of time, which you shouldn't be thinking about the time. Set a timer. I think 20 minutes is great. Maybe if you're just starting out, 10 minutes. Choose something that is doable, sustainable, but notice that even early on, even in the first time, when you sit down and you close your eyes, there's a relaxing. Even just notice even that little bit. As you practice, that will get more and more profound. And you will come to this place where it's like a holiday. It's better than sleep, where you realize you can just put your bags down. You can just let go. And take my word for it, that gets deeper and it gets more beneficial till you wouldn't have a day without it. You realize how refreshing it is and how important it is, and how it supports everything else that you do. And how essential it is, because what happens when you're in that, thoughts continue to come up. No matter how many years you've done it, thoughts will still come up. You may, if you practice thought, you'll be able to get to a deeper place where thoughts are of a different quality sooner. But thoughts still come up. The thing is to just notice the thought as there's a thought, and then come back to what your focus is, whether it's your breath, whether it's a mantra, whether it's counting something, whether it's eye gazing or eye fixation. There's a thought, back to focus. There's a thought, back to focus. The thoughts are just like clouds floating through the sky. You don't want to grab onto that thought and add another thought and another thought and another thought to it. You want to de-emphasize the thought by emphasizing what you're focusing on. And by doing that, each time you come back to that thing that you're focusing on, you are flexing a muscle of mental concentration. And what will happen as you come back each time, you will deepen a little bit. And your mind will expand a little bit. And your nervous system will relax a little bit. And then you'll be able to use that sensation of relaxation, that sensation of expansion, as something to focus on. That now becomes your focus. And then deeper and deeper, you just acclimate to a deeper, more expansive state of awareness. However, what I was trying to point out there was that you will be confronted with yourself on the way deeper. You'll get flashes of things, thoughts and things will occur to you that will grab your attention and pull you off course from what you're supposed to be focusing on. Sometimes that can be very profound, very vivid, and very intense. But this is those deeper parts of yourself revealing themselves to you. They were hidden in the shadows. You had pushed them to the side, and now they're flooding into your awareness as you expand. So sometimes it's often these things that are kept to the side are things we don't really want to look at. And we don't have to. They will just start integrating themselves into the consciousness. And they will come up, and your subconscious knows how to do it. You need to have faith that these things it's not attacking you. Your subconscious mind is offering you an opportunity to evolve and grow. And these things we can use to revise our personal ethos. And it will actually just naturally happen as long as we're willing to continue that practice of observation. And that's what it is. It's an inner listening. It's just like if we're having a conversation with somebody and we're being respectful, we're being a good listener. We're not thinking about our response. We're just focused on the person, on listening. And if we're really good at that, we're going to repeat to the person even little bits that, yes, we're paying attention. We might reflect what we've heard. So it's the same thing. We're focusing inward on that inner intention. And as I say, that can change. So in the beginning, maybe it is the breath. Maybe it's gazing at a candle. As it progresses, we'll evolve that practice. And after a while, that focus will be directed inward to observation itself, to consciousness itself. And there's no timeline for that. That actually can even occur quite spontaneously. So this is not about effort. It's about gentleness. It's about subtleness and softness, just creating the time to listen. And this will help us actually embody our intrinsic values, not values that we're getting out from outside of us. Maybe we integrate some information from outside of us, some teaching, some information, but we're integrating it, utilizing our inner consciousness. And so maybe we're refining it, we're fitting it into the worldview that we currently hold. That is what we need to be doing as responsible adults. When we think about our responsibility in our interconnectivity with everything else, we should not be taking in poison, because if we get poisoned, then we can end up poisoning others. We should always be interpreting, assessing, and digesting information and integrating it with wisdom. That's very difficult to do on purely the intellectual level. We need to utilize a deeper consciousness.